It's about the pubs are open early, particularly Wetherspoons. I just wanted to get your opinion, really, because do you think that Wetherspoons normalise alcoholism? Because I've been to Wetherspoons quite a lot. Just a bit of research and whatnot, and also when I was drinking heavily. And because it's early opening, I think people tend to stay there a bit longer. Now, my view on it is you've got an issue with alcohol and you're lonely, because generally alcoholics are lonely. Then you sort of head to that sort of pub, won't you? So Wetherspoons, to me, is allowing people to drink more because it's cheap, you see. And people will say, oh, it's freedom of choice and all this sort of kind. Well, it is freedom of choice, but people wouldn't stay in there for as long. I know a lot of alcoholics, and they can't afford to drink anywhere else because it's about a third of the price of the other high street pubs. So, in my view, it does normalise alcoholism. And people don't seem to grasp this. I spoke to a couple of doctors, liver specialists, and they agree with me in some ways. The people were just sitting there, especially in the winter. It's warm, it's cheap, and it's very easy to get a few drinks for a couple of quid. I mean, I was in one the other day, and it said pint of bitter $1.49. Well, that goes back to when I was young. This is a long time ago. And I think, $1.49 for a pint? That's 10 pints. It's easy, just over a tenner, isn't it? You know what I mean? So you can spend 20 quid a night, have a lot of drink. Spend all day there. I mean, you can spend all day, you have a little bite to eat, you know, it's nice and warm. See your mates, you've got your mates in there. It becomes a bit of a social club, doesn't it? And I think it does normalise alcoholism. Because I think a lot of people will drift there. There's nothing else to do. The weather in the northeast is pretty naff, to be honest. Even in the summer, I mean, today it's cloudy. It's going to be wet later. So it's a good place to go, isn't it? And if you've got £10 spare, you can spend all day in there. So you go to an ordinary pub, it's £5-6 a pint. You're not going to be able to stay there. So in my view, it does normalise alcoholism, and it creates an atmosphere where everyone's in the same boat. There's a bit of a prison, isn't it? It's like an open prison. They go in there at the same time each day, sit in the same seats, and it becomes a normality. Every day they get up at 8 o'clock. Some people are queuing at these pubs, you know, at 9 o'clock. Get around. The one in Gosforth that I use near Newcastle, I think it opens at 8. You can't buy a drink till 9. So a lot of people go in at 8 and just wait for the bar to open at 9. And they're there every day. No wonder they're ill. Don't get any fresh air, no exercise. They're just sitting there all day, drinking. Might have a little bite to eat, but not that much. And a lot of the people in there I know have got serious mental and physical issues, mental health issues because of alcohol. And most of them smoke as well. I don't know where they get the money for cigarettes, but the beer is so cheap compared to the other breweries. It's cheaper than a supermarket. So they go there, have a few drinks, keep themselves busy, as in on a bit of chat, pass the newspapers around. I've no doubt that in some of the rougher parts of town, there's a bit of dealing going on with not dealing, but you know, got some cheap cigs, some cheap booze, some cheap whatever, cheap watches, all this sort of carrying, which is nothing wrong with that. We've all got to live, haven't we? And so a lot of people in there sort of day-to-day living on them. But I think that's a routine for a lot of people. They get up, hit the boozer, they're there all day. They might even want to stay there all day. It's rain outside, they can't bother to leave. And because of the price, it's a crazy thing, isn't it? Hi, why is US more prone to liver disease in UK or anywhere else because of the prices? I think the UK has got an increase in alcoholic death rates from all sorts of things, not just liver disease, because you've got strokes, pancreatitis, all this sort of thing, and heart attacks. But I think it's pretty similar. I think the US is as bad as the UK. With the UK is very much of a binge drinking thing. I know a couple of people that I mentor, and they live in the States, New York, and there's obviously plenty of places to drink, but the UK seems to be particularly bad. It's much worse than most of the places in Europe, the UK. with just binge drinking and steady drinking. Like I say, this chain of pubs, if you've never been to the UK, it's called Wetherspoons. They open really early and they close quite late. And because of the price structure, you can pretty much get hammered for virtually nothing. Hi Paul, how are you doing? I'm just talking about Wetherspoons here and how it seems to normalise alcoholism. And you go in there at 10 o'clock for a bit of breakfast maybe. Not that the breakfasts are pretty good. But you see people with drinks and it just becomes like, oh, that's okay to have a pint at 10:15 at 9:05. I know one guy who he works during the week, he hasn't got a particularly stressful job. He goes in at 9:05 on a Saturday and he's there all day. He sits there all day. He's only 41. He's got liver fibrosis. Well, he was told he had liver fibrosis years ago, but he's cirrhosis now. He's losing weight. He's not particularly well. And he just sits there. And he sits with a load of old guys in their 60s and 70s who are all pretty ill. One guy's on dialysis. And he goes in there every day. Another guy's had pancreatitis twice. Been in intensive care twice. He's on 17 tablets every day just to keep him going. You know, this sort of thing. So it's a bit of a place. And I think it encourages it. I really do. I think it encourages people to stay longer. And it becomes their norm. They don't do anything at home. Most are single men over the age of 45 to 50. A lot of them don't work. And because it's cheap, the benefits just go on booze. So they go there, they go to Wetherspoons, then they go to the bookies, put a bet on. And before you know it, they've had, 10 pints. Somebody else will come in, they'll buy them a drink. They'll get some money from somewhere. Alcoholics will always find money from somewhere. I'm not going to go into, where they're going to get it from, but you understand what I'm saying. They'll always find money from somewhere to booze. And if you're only paying a couple of pounds a pint, or £1.50 a pint, you can get absolutely hammered for very little money. Even if you don't work, if you're just on benefits, or you've got a little bit of cash behind you. And it becomes, you walk in there at 9:30 and you think, wow, there's lots of people drinking in here. I've just been into one in County Durham to get a Guinness Zero, actually. And to also do a bit of research. It was packed. There were very few tables that were vacant, to be fair. They weren't all drinking. I would say 70% of people in there were drinking. And drinking before 10 a.m. And it becomes a habit. Now, I think, going back to addiction, the habit turned to addiction. There's all sorts of theories about, are you born an alcoholic? Does pressure cause alcoholism? I'm not sure. I think that it's just a habit. With me, I had a good job. I was fit. I was living where I wanted to live in London. I worked in central London. But the habit of going to the pub after work every day then set my life into a spiral. And it was basically, I got used to it. And once you get used to something, like anything, isn't it? You want more of it. And that's what happened in my case, and the case of a lot of guys I used to work with who are no longer here, or some are disabled or very, very ill with it. If the habit becomes an addiction, when it's addiction, then you can't get off it, or it's very difficult to get off it. And even when you do come off it, you want to go back, because alcohol's a big, big part of your life, especially in the UK. It's a social norm to just get on the booze. And I just, I want to get some opinions on this, really. Maybe I'll get some comments later on when people are open about, but it's just one that really bugs me a little bit. When people say, oh no, it's personal choice. It is personal choice, but if the availability is there, it's a bit like the COVID thing, you see. During COVID, a lot of people work from home. Now, years before COVID, very few people worked from home, to be honest. It was always offices, people were travelling to work, and all this sort of thing. Everything was open. They've got more high tech now. There's less people doing manual jobs, all this sort of thing. And during COVID, people had the opportunity to drink. It's all about opportunity. And you can just get up in the morning, on a Monday especially, work from home, feeling a bit rough, have a hair of the dog beer, and they're back on it again. And this is what happens, you see. 100%, yeah, all right, that is the culture in the UK. The culture is just to drink, especially weekends. But the people who are retired, the people who maybe don't work, can't work, or whatever, will just go every day. It's something to do, isn't it? It's a norm, especially if the weather isn't particularly good, you see. There's nothing else to do. When you get this spiral of drinking too much, you become more unfit, more unwell, more used to it, in the habit, like I said, habit becomes an addiction, get the same friends and the same boozer, and then they become institutionalized in a way. That's what Wetherspoons is. It's an institution. Hi, Paul. 9 a.m. 7 days a week, Wetherspoons, Chesley Street. Well, I'm not far from that today, actually. I'm just in Spennymoor, which isn't that far from Chesley Street, is it? Thanks for why your mum and younger brother both died. That's sad about your mum and your younger brother. It is a very real subject. It needs to be spoken about a lot more than it is. A lot of people shy away from alcoholism because they think, well, that's just one of them things. It's killing millions all over the world. People die in the UK every day. But the ward I was on in Newcastle Hospital was packed. A lot of female deaths, you know. Tolo, no, what Tolo is. We just passed it earlier. Cheers, Paul. I don't know the area that well, but I've been into the Grand Electrical Wizard, which is in Spennymoor Town Centre. It looks quite a new place. I just had a little pint of Zero Guinness there. I had a breakfast, a little cafe nearby, which was quite good. And the weather's not particularly good, as you know, over here. But another thing, so the reason they're all in there, but that pub, honestly, Paul, was packed. That Grand Electrical, was it Hall or something, not Wizard. Grand Electrical Hall is a huge pub. And there were very few tables empty, you know. I say not everyone was drinking. But most were. Most of the guys were in all sorts of ages, you know, 50 to 70, 50 to 80, that sort of thing. And it's just like, it's so cheap, like I say, a couple of pounds a pint. So 20 quid, you got 10 pints, haven't you? It's all a bit of a mess at the moment at the UK. You got this huge recession, and that's where people turn to the drink, don't they? How do you see? Yeah, I see your point there. It's the same struggle with different poison. But it's all a poison, isn't it? Any addiction is a poison. And you know, speak to your doctor about that, DC, I would, and see what they can say, see what they do for you, because you know, other substances, other medications, all they're similar. When I tried to get diazepam again in 2014, they said to me I was going to be addicted to it. I hadn't had any for 8 years, so you never know what's going to happen to your body, do you? The more stuff you put in your body, the more side effects you're going to get. And you're going to be very careful with addictions, haven't you? Because it will take over your life. And it's very hard to get off something, especially something which, in my case, I used to enjoy drinking, you see. I got taken to the doctors by my ex-wife. I was about 30, and I was going to give it up. But I didn't want to. And you have to be ready to give up alcohol, you know. You can't just give it up because somebody says give it up. It's a matter for yourself, isn't it? You can't be told to give it up. You're not going to do it, are you? Hi, Paul. The bar just has a karaoke on at 10 a.m. Really? God, that's incredible, isn't it? I tell you where we've been recently, doing a bit of work in Middlesbrough. Now, that's a place. There's a pub called the Central, opposite the court near the main street. And that's a bit like that. It's got a karaoke on a Monday. I think it's on every day. It's like, if you go in there about 11:30, midday, there's a big disco on. And you think, goodness me, the people, where are they getting the cash, you know? But that's not cheap. That's not a Wetherspoon. It's normal bar prices, cheaper than Newcastle and cheaper than Manchester and London, obviously. But it's still not. It's not cheap. And a lot of people are in there having a few drinks, putting bets on, smoking outside. And, you know, the usual carry-on that goes on these boozers. And I used to be one of them. To be fair, I was in the boozer all the time. I was king of the pub. I'd hate to work out what I actually spent on alcohol over the years. It's frightening what I spent, especially in drinking in so premium pubs and bars in London, and drinking the premium beers, premium lagers, you know. Hi there, yeah, you're right, yeah, poor man's gym. It's so true, that, isn't it? Yeah, a poor man's gym. Oh no, that's what you're calling a poor man's gym. Hiya. I've already said this. Why is alcohol so cheap in the UK? It's not cheap everywhere in the UK. It's cheap in certain places, and it's cheap in certain bars, certain breweries. Samuel Smith's is another one that's got a reasonable price, but Wetherspoons is the cheapest on the high street, and there's Wetherspoons in every town that I know. I just can't get my head around why it's so bad. The people I'll liaise with quite a lot of doctors now, because I'm doing some advisory stuff with an alcohol care team, and nobody seems to know why we've got this culture here, because it's not the same in France and Spain. Germany's got a bit of an issue with alcohol. Greece, people drink more socially. We have this huge alcohol problem in the UK because it's just, in society, isn't it? It's everywhere. You go to a funeral, there's alcohol. Everywhere you go in the UK, there's alcohol available. 24-hour availability in some supermarkets, 24-hour availability in filling stations, petrol stations, and all this sort of thing. And so it's everywhere. It's normalised, isn't it? It's socially acceptable. That's the problem with it. And it's so easy to get a drink. And it's so easy to get addicted to it. Hi, Stephen. 4 cans every other night. That's not a problem. As long as you've got no health issues. You're giving your liver a break, you see, if you drink every other night. But yeah, I'm going to try the treatment centres. I've been doing this for about 14 months now. I'm trying to get in a few places to Lexington, because I was really at the bottom of the bottle, Hi, Lucy. What impressions or thoughts do you have? You see a person who's drunk. I'm used to seeing people drunk, because I was a police officer in central London. It doesn't worry me too much, that. I just think, well, I wish I could help them a little bit more, because I don't think the NHS is doing enough for alcoholics, and I think it's becoming more of a problem. Hi, David. Yeah, I've heard about Australia. A lot of big drinkers, a lot of issues in Australia, a similar culture, and it's not good, is it? Hi, Chris. Yeah, I agree with a better culture there. The UK has always had a bad reputation, and it goes back even to years ago, isn't it? The football fans. And then when the Brits started to go overseas to Spain and things, it was a problem then. And, Brits abroad. There's various programs, various documentaries about Brits abroad causing issues for the police in Europe, and just getting hammered. Another thing, I don't know if you've heard, some people from overseas might have heard of these holidays, all-inclusive holidays, where people would pay a set fee and go overseas and then have an all-inclusive bar. You didn't pay for the drinks, basically, and people used to go from 8 o'clock in the morning until midnight and drink as much as they wanted, all day and all night. I did that once and ended up in a total mess. Went over to Fuerteventura, Canary Islands, when I was about 35. What a mess I was in. Not because it was free, because I had plenty of money. Well, I had some money. It was just available, and the availability of it there, and the bar was open. So go crazy. Hi, Stephen. A lot of people are drinking more at home. I agree about the home drinking, definitely. Do you think cigarettes still health? Yeah, definitely health warnings. I would agree with that. 100% health warnings. Same as cigarettes. Chris, yeah, avoid going to the town centre. Fair enough, yeah. You're right, too many idiots looking for fights. 100%. I'm going to Ireland tonight, funny enough. I'm going to Dublin with my partner, which is it's a bit of a coincidence. I've never been to Dublin, I've never been to Ireland, to be honest with you. I don't know, damage. A lot of damage it does, yeah. 6 months out of drink, well done. And I'm glad I've helped you. U2, top band, Bono and Co. 3-piece, good bass player. I used to play the bass when I was younger. Adam Clayton, good bass player. Obviously the Edge runs the show, doesn't he? U2 was my favourite band. I went to see them when I was 19 at the Mayfair in Newcastle, when they just started out. I said to my girlfriend at the time, they're going to be a big band. That was before they were huge, before they exploded, because I played the bass myself. Incredible band. When I went to see them, Gloria was just been released, and it was an incredible song. I Will Follow, all them sort of thing, the early days, before it went a bit old, eclectic as it were. Brilliant band though. I don't know how old Bono is now, maybe 63, 64. I do know he's looking a bit rough around the edges. I don't know if that's drink, drugs or otherwise, but he was a good looking lad when he was younger, very small though. My girlfriend liked him. I said, he's too short for you. But I do remember seeing him, think, oh, he's a little bastard, but he's a good looking guy when he was younger. But he looks terrible now, which I'm pleased about. New tickets are bad rap nowadays. Oh, they were massive in the early days, yeah. Yeah, remember the Old Boy album? Because I played bass, I thought I was going to be the next Adam Clayton, My dad wouldn't let me go on a trip to Amsterdam. I got invited by a band then. Lots of Guinness here. Well, I'll be drinking Guinness Zero in Dublin tonight. people going to weddings. So I've been told Guinness Zero is actually on draft, which would be good. Yeah, at the Edge. Oh, Jen Clayton's most talented. I'm not sure the Edge is a bit of a bore. You can play keyboards as well, you know. I like the Edge. So yes, Ireland, Guinness Zero on draft, that'll be good. I tried a restaurant in Newcastle once. They had Guinness Zero on draft, because I've always got to check, you know. I certainly don't want to have a proper pint of Guinness. I used to have an Ibanez bass, electric bass. I used to have also a Fender Precision bass. Had a Marshall 100-watt valve amp, a Marshall speaker. I had an orange speaker. I remember the old orange box ones. And I used to love the bass. I used to teach people the bass. I never read music, but I had quite a good year. I used to just improvise, you know. And a good friend of mine, Jonathan Fellow, was a guitarist, and he became a professor at the Royal College of Music in London. Very, very talented guy. Yeah, I missed the bass. On tall, long fingers, a bit like Clayton. Yeah, it was a good time playing in the band. And then when I joined the police, obviously that just all got shelved because I moved away, and I was working long hours in the police shifts and stuff, you know. But it was very good hobby when I was young. It kept me on the straight and narrow. Hi Tim, hope you're well. I was talking about Wetherspoons and how it's normalised in life, you know. Vivitrol shot. I'm not sure about the Vivitrol shot, what that is, to be honest with you. Is that something to keep you off the booze, or is it like an anti drink thing? Vivitrol. No, I don't know what that is. But yeah, it's a bad thing, alcohol. It needs to be. Oh, anti-craving, yeah. I've had a mate who was on some sort of anti-craving drug a long time ago. It didn't do him any good. He's just been taken to the hospital with a stroke. He went on the booze last week and drank 2 bottles of vodka. I never had cravings, to be honest with you. I was off and on and off, as it were. So I would have long periods of sobriety, then relapse, because I thought I was in control of it. And I think this is the issue with alcohol. When you feel as if you've got control of it again, then you're going to relapse, and then you become more ill. Because every time you go back on the booze, it has a worse effect on you. It's called the kindling effect. It's worth Googling that if you don't know what it is. It's where people have times off the booze, they go back on it. It's much worse. I was off for 8 years between 2006 and 2014. And I met a girl, and the only thing that wasn't right in the relationship was the fact I didn't drink, according to her. So I had a little bit to drink. I was frightened to drink again, you know, after 8 years sober. And within about a week, I was back to drinking full time. That's how quick it can grab you back, you know. Lucy, what do you think are the reasons for the drinking culture? I think the climate in the UK, yeah. I think definitely social opportunities. There's not a lot to do in the big cities. There's no youth entertainment really, but you're right about the climate. You know, you go to Spain, Greece, you see the young lads playing football, the girls playing netball at night and all this sort of thing. We're a bit sort of bolted up at night, aren't we? The long winter nights in the UK, and there's nothing else to do. And if everything you do in the UK, other than the pub's expensive. Taking kids to the cinema is 100 quid. You've got a couple of kids, isn't it? Everything's pricey here. And the UK is one of the most expensive places to live now, and it's not particularly good. There's not much to do in the UK other than boozers. My partner said the other day, what we're going to do today, all there is to do in the UK is to eat and drink. When we go to a museum, which isn't particularly exciting, is it? 100% it's glamorised too much, yeah. We're expected to drink. It becomes, you write a passage when you're 18, you can drink legally. And it's pushed on people. It's normalised. That's what I mean. Everything's normalised in the UK, isn't it? James, hiya. Yeah, I know what you mean about the good crack. I'm glad you're off it. You're going to the wedding tomorrow, so am I. Don't weaken with the people who say, why don't you drink? Just say you don't drink because you don't feel well with it. Be strong, because if you get yourself in a mess, you just have 1 or 2 weeks to be undone. Just be strong with it and say you're not going to drink because you don't want to. It'll take you back to square one. Yeah, you're right about the other European countries. I don't know why they're not burning themselves to death. Maybe wealth inequality. You just can say there's more of life. That's very true. Yeah, deprivation. Deprivation causes massive alcohol problems. It's strange enough, I had a chat with a specialist liver nurse the other day. I'm kind of helping a little bit with NHS. And we discussed the fact that in the south of England, they drink more, but their health's better. And alcoholic death rate is higher in the northeast, where there's a lot more deprivation, even though they drink similar amounts in the northeast, but and maybe even slightly less. But the diets are poor. They have less social mobility, less money generally, and they haven't got a very positive outlook. And the education system is maybe not that good. I don't know. Well, it's just my view. This, but areas of deprivation certainly suffer from much higher alcoholism rates than more wealthy areas, more affluent areas, you would say. And you're right, yeah, more European countries. You've got Scandinavia. There's a lot of drinking in Scandinavia. There's a lot of drinking in Russia. There's a lot of drinking in a few countries, but they obviously focus on the UK at the moment. I think that the UK is the worst in Europe by far. And I think there's a recession here. There's been a recession for a long time. Heavy industry was massive in certain parts of the country, and that just created more of a drink culture. It's always been bad in the UK, hasn't it? I mean, I'm the wrong end of 60, the wrong side of 60, and I remember when I was young that the UK was bad for drinking. We used to go to football matches with our father, and people would be on the beer and peeing down the back of your leg at the football ground when you're standing up against the barriers, all this sort of thing. You know, go to the pub and have 10 pints. This is what caused all the football violence in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, really, until the police managed to get a handle on that, you know. Drinking. That's what people look forward to. A bank holiday in the UK, people don't say, oh, I'm going to have a good bank holiday. What they say is, oh, it's another excuse to drink. And they'll spend all day Saturday, Sunday and Monday trying to recover. Do you have any opinions on cannabis? I haven't taken cannabis. My daughter's taken it. It will be legalised in the UK because it was decriminalised more or less in the Met. If it was just possession, nobody ever got charged with cannabis possession. It was all just cautioned. It will be legalised 100% because you can get the CBD oil, CBD oil now. They're 100% legalised. The US, I would say the US isn't as bad as the UK for alcohol deaths. Obviously, it's a bigger population, but you know, head for head, probably less than the UK. I'd say the UK is pretty much one of the worst. Easy tax cash. Yeah, true. Yeah, I think it'll. I think cannabis will definitely come along. 100%. I think it's got to come along. A lot of people smoke it anyway. It does have some, you know, some effects, but I never dealt with many cannabis-driven fights or disputes in the police. It was always alcohol, mainly alcohol that caused problems. I would say 90% of what I dealt with, especially in central London, public order, was drink-related. You know, people don't commit criminal damage when they're sober. They don't start a fight with the mates when they're sober. They don't start a fight with the wife when they're sober. A lot of people don't commit any crime when they're sober. They need a few Dutch courage and all that sort of thing. So it's a massive, massive problem. It's not going to get any easier, is it? But it's good to discuss it and see what other people's opinions are, because I think it's out of control in the UK. Totally. Yeah, joints nowadays, yeah, exactly. I know what you're saying about the joints. Like I said, 20 years ago, the bit of possession wasn't really still a arrestable offence, but it wasn't taken that seriously if it's just a little bit of possession. It's you know, it's been legal in the Netherlands for years, and it's why not here, you know. Yeah, get you on the exercise, or why you've got to do exercise. That's why I go to the gym as much as I can, because exercise is good for the mind, isn't it, as well. And what you've got to do is, the thing with alcoholism, you're going to have, when you come off it, you're going to have a lot of spare time. Because you think the amount of time you spend planning to go for a drink, getting to the pub, drinking, and more importantly, the amount of time you spend recovering. I used to spend days recovering. And as you get older, you spend more time recovering. This is the problem, or this is the issue with it. And you spend hours and hours in bed, don't you? Sweating, feeling rough. Another thing I'll just mention here, which a lot of you will relate to, is anxiety. My God, I was so anxious when I used to drink, about work, about life, about traveling, about everything. About the post, about bills, just every single thing. Everything was blown out of all proportion. I felt that I wasn't myself, you know. I just couldn't deal with anything. Now I deal with everything, not a problem. But when I was drinking, anxiety, but as soon as I stopped drinking, anxiety was under control. And that's a massive, massive problem, anxiety. I couldn't even drive properly, you know. I used to be able to drive on the country roads But I hated motorways, so I used to feel panic as if I thought, oh, something's going to happen to me. I was going to crash, or something. I couldn't get off the road, but I could pull over on a country road. I always had this fear, you know, when I was drinking, this anxiety thing of impending doom. Everything was going to go wrong. I was never positive. So I'd gone from a very, very confident young man to being the shadow of my former self. I was like a mouse. I didn't have time for anybody. I didn't feel well. I was not eating properly. You got to eat properly. You got to get your mind clear, and you've got to be very strong to give up alcohol. You can't just give it up and think, oh, we've done. You know, you can't 20 years of drinking just give it up. You got to be very careful when you stop as well, otherwise you'll have seizures like I did. You know. Hi Fitzy, how are you? Thanks about the live. Yeah. I'm pleased the anxiety's gone, because that really, really takes some beating, because it will affect every part of your life, anxiety. I couldn't get on a bus, not that I get on many buses, but I didn't want to go anywhere, I didn't want to face anybody, I didn't want to speak to anybody. That's the problem. Hi Jason, how are you doing? Australia, fantastic, eh? What I do for my time, and I've got a very busy partner who's younger than me, so she keeps me busy. Got a daughter in Manchester. I go to the gym as much as I can. I'm doing this channel, I've written a book, I'm working with the NHS. I try and get away as much as possible, maybe go to Europe for little breaks. I generally look after myself, do a lot of cooking, current affairs, read a little bit. I've learned to relax without alcohol, which is brilliant, you know. And that's a big thing, when you can relax without alcohol, because alcohol was the only thing that made me calm down, because as you can probably gather, I'm quite hyper and I've got a lot to say, because I've been through all of this alcohol. I've always had a lot to say. When I was drinking, I didn't have anything to say, because I was frightened. That's another thing. I became very frightened of life, frightened of people, frightened of circumstances. Jason, acting, well, if you've got any leads, I'm your man. I'll try anything. I've always been about that. I take a risk. Anything I'll try. Acting, flying, whatever you like. Be good, because my partner just said to me, very good at exaggerating. I don't mean to exaggerate, but I think I do blow things out of proportion. I can't remember what I can't remember what the liver counts were like, but my liver was coming back, liver blood test coming back all right, even though I had cirrhosis, so be careful with that. Liver function test can show it's okay, and it's not okay. That's why you need a liver scan if you can. Hi Mark. Ireland, yeah, we're going there tonight. I've heard the island's bad, parts of it. I'm going to Dublin, never been Ireland. I'm not sure what the real difference in the drinking is between north and south, but I've heard that Dublin's very expensive, although I'll be drinking Guinness Zero, of course. But yeah, that's what Northern Ireland's part of the UK. I just think the UK is where I am at the moment. I just think it's just bad here. I've seen, you know, when I was in hospital, I was in hospital for best part of 2 years, in a wheelchair 3.5 years ago. I couldn't walk. I was 9 stone. So I had a big recovery time. A big recovery time, a short time, but I've recovered to, you know, pretty well. And when I think about the hospital, how many people died in the hospital when I was in there, I think, wow, something's got to be done about this. And I can't do it on my own, obviously. But I think recession's caused an issue. COVID's caused an issue. The fact it's normalised here. Wetherspoons, I keep banging about that. I'm not going to take them on myself. I just think that's my view about Wetherspoons. It encourages more people to stay in the pub longer, and it's cheap. Hi, Monk Dan, how are you doing? Manchester, I presume. My daughter's down there, lived there for 12 years. I like Manchester. There's a big Wetherspoons in the town centre, isn't there? Near the big square. It's always busy in there. Plastic glasses on match day. My liver numbers look great, and I drank like Richard. Yes, or why? My liver function blood tests are not dissatisfactory, they're normal, and I've got cirrhosis. You must get it checked. Hi Monk Dan, yeah, it's hammered. Yeah, plastic glasses, I remember that. And match days, pretty much City were playing. It's a good pub, mind. You saved my bank, that's a good thing. Talented man, save a lot of cash. That's the one, the Moon and the War. I've been in both, yeah. Actually, is that Deansgate? The Moon and the War is the one I've been in. I must have been in the both, because I go to Manchester every few months, so I know they're good booze, I know they're very busy. Very good service. There's always lots of staff in there. It's much bigger than Newcastle. And it's much better than Newcastle, I think. I wouldn't mind moving to Manchester, but time will tell, you know. Yeah, that's right, the old cinema building, yeah. Got you. I know what you mean, yeah. It's very expensive, Manchester now, especially Deansgate area and the town centre. It's gone up a lot. My daughter's Tilsley way, Worsley way, that sort of thing. I like Manchester. There's always a bit going on, isn't it? It's not as manic as London, but it's just big enough to have a good time. Chinatown's good as well. Or is it just enough to keep you busy? We've got 2 football teams, obviously. And the cricket ground, isn't there? There's an athletic stadium there as well. So it's good. Yeah, so just drop in, have a chat on here. I'm going to do it a little bit more. I just think the lives might be quite good for getting a few different opinions. It's already doing videos, but it's a bit different when you're talking to somebody like this, isn't it? If you've got any questions, you know, give me a shout. I've been dealing with alcoholism since I was about 14, really. But that's when I started drinking. I was drinking my dad's home brew. And I knew I had a high tolerance level then, you know. And my mates used to come down from the band and whatnot. When they had a few home brews, they'd be staggering up the road, and I would be ready to go out at night, you know, 15, 16. I had a couple of mates who were rugby players who were a little bit older, and they used to get served. We'd just sit in the corner and have a few pints, but I found myself drinking quite regularly, and then I joined the police, and I was only 21. They were a lot of older, more seasoned drinkers, shall we say, and even those I could drink under the table. And I'm quite surprised how much I could drink. And I was king of the pub, really, and I'd quite like that accolade, you know. Sounds a bit childish, really, but it was something I was good at, and I did enjoy it. I was quite a shy kid, and I got bullied a little bit. I think when I got the alcohol down me, it was like really, really, I don't know, just gave me a bit of a boost, and it was my drug of choice, you know. I didn't take any drugs. Tried cannabis once or twice, but I'd already had a drink, so it had no effect on me, and I didn't smoke. And thanks, Jason. I just think that it's one of these things where we do get a buzz, don't we? But when that's past, the buzz past, when you start to have hair of the dog, yeah, that's okay now and again on holiday. But when that becomes regular, then you then slip into what I would call top of drinking, where you're drinking every day to try and stem off the hangovers. That's the issue. When your hangover turns into withdrawal, when you start to shake, when you start to feel nauseous, when you start to be sick, that's when it's really, really dangerous. And you start to become ill. And then the mental health kicks in. With me, the mental health was pretty much first, you know. Ben, yeah, I agree, Benjamin, yeah. Hair of the dog, 100% the turn point. 100%, especially if you're not on holiday. I know that it's an excuse, but doctors always say to me, be careful when you go on holiday, you may drink again. I'll never drink again, I can't. I was told by a doctor, 2019, if you drink again, you'd be dead in 6 months. And that's what I tell people who I support and mentor now. If you can't stop drinking, you will die early. It's as simple as that. There's no third choice. You either drink yourself to death, you stop drinking, because we're not normal drinkers. Normal drinkers, as I would class them, can socially drink. We can't. If I have one, I'll have 10, I'll die. Simple as that. You've got to be straight with yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself, you know. Hair of the dog when things went south for me, 100%. Cheers, Jason. It's an honest answer, that. Yeah. I like the, hi, James. You've got to be honest, I think, haven't you? You've got to be honest. If you're not honest with yourself, then you're going to just pass away. The average alcohol-dependent person will die 25 years younger than the general population. And the average age for liver disease deaths is 57. And I was speaking to a specialist nurse the other day, that number's coming down. So more people are dying, or more younger people are dying of alcohol-related cirrhosis than ever, because they're drinking more when they're younger. I know there's all this press thing about youngsters aren't drinking more. That's all got to do with socio-economic factors. But in the deprived areas, younger people are drinking more, and they're getting liver disease quicker because the alcohol is stronger. I never drank wine when I didn't drink any wine in my life, but no men used to drink wine. I'm talking about men, real men. I'm just on about men in general, you know. Yeah, see that. Other binge the speed, monk. Cheers, mate. I'm 63 now, Pat. Do you think mental health? Mental health problems, yes. I think it's a bit, one feeds off the other. We drink to stem anxiety, and then anxiety is caused by alcohol. So it's a bit of a difficult one, that. Most of the people I speak to that are mentor and support are very similar to me. They're quite caring people, they're quite good people. And I would say 99% of alcoholics I've come across are very, very, they're overthinkers, to be honest with you. That's what they're, overthinkers. And that causes issues. And, I don't want to labour the point, but the more you overthink, the more your mind wanders, your imagination wanders, and you think everything's going to go wrong, and like you get this impending doom, like I said, which is a problem. And I just think the whole thing's a mess, to be honest with you. But you've got to, my mother said, she's 94, son, you've got to look after yourself. And the doctor told me, well, years ago, when I first went to the doctor to try and get some pills to get off the drink, I said, I'm quite a caring person. I'm worried about the daughter. I'm worried about the family. I said, unless you look after yourself, you're not going to be able to look after anybody else. So you've got to look after yourself first, because you're the most important thing. I'm going to wrap this up now, because I've got an appointment with somebody. And I'll be back soon. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your comments. And I'll speak to you all very soon. And take it easy. Jason, what this one on? Do you still have difficult days? No, I've never considered drinking in the last 5.5 years. No, because I've been through so much carry on. So I don't consider drinking. Thanks, Fitzy, for that. We'll do some more lives. I think there's more people get to know. It'll be good. Okay, I'll speak to you soon.